that is yet, but hopefully there's like a README in there or something, so it would be a little bit easier for me to handle. If I was a client and I was getting a bunch of projects and stuff, I would certainly want things labeled well enough for me to understand what's going on. So we're starting with Nate Jones's project. Looking pretty good so far. So we have a bunch of graphics, all as JPEGs, one PSD here as well. So what is this one? It is an alternative banner for CMYK. So if it's CMYK, I would assume that this is for print. Woofer Creative. I mean, it's certainly readable. The logo is pretty nice. The texture here, maybe if it's like part of a bigger project or something, and this is incorporated kind of throughout, that would be a nice thing. Is just its own thing. Having a really harsh texture up on the borders here will, sometimes be a little bit contrasty. So the big things, though, are you able to read the text? Certainly. And then if it is print, I'd be kind of concerned with the logo being so close to the border. So generally with a CMYK, we're thinking some kind of print, and then there should be some amount of bleed area just in case, something gets cut off. You wouldn't want part of your text to be cut off there. So not a bad start. Alternative banner RGB. So this is the same thing, just an RGB. Well, we can tell right away that you have no issues, or Nate has no issues with CMYK to RGB with his banner there. Everything looked the same color. So what is this one? Alternative logo. So this looks, again, really easy to read. I like the logo quite a bit. It looks like it might be like an Illustrator image trace, and then maybe some extra stuff on top with the sunglasses there. Nice clean circle here. The gradient around the edge looks nice. It almost looks like a pin or something. Again, though, we see very, very strong background here, like very, very bold. So kind of depends on where this is going, I guess. If this was maybe a profile picture on social media, I would think that this is like really good. In that case, you have no issues with text being near a border. I would say... No, I think that that's all good. I'm looking very closely at this to make sure everything is centered. I think that the wolf or coyote here is just like a little asymmetrical in its face, which is totally fine. But everything else looks nice and centered, so that's good there too. So I would assume alternate logo RGB is the same thing. Certainly no color issues there. Bus ad in 300 dots per inch, so that's definitely a print here. So let's take a look at it in JPEG. Very large. Yeah, so that's kind of what you want. 48 by 69. So this is kind of comparable to the movie posters we'll be looking at with the undergrad students. So a nice, very, very large poster print. And I think that this would look really good as a poster print too. So if I just zoom in here, we're not losing any kind of quality at this level. I would say if I look really close at that logo, all of a sudden I can see some aliasing on the edges, which is not the best thing in the world. But I could probably let it go in a poster print. Again, though, we're in that area where we want to print, and the bleed area is certainly a thing. So I'd worry about your logo being cut off at the top, as well as this STLLA at the bottom here. So we could probably adjust like the spacing between the words here to just kind of make that a little bit smaller. I would think the space on the sides is just fine, but right along the top and bottom, that's probably where you would want to clean things up. Okay, so let's take a look at the business card. Okay, so very similar to the banner ad here. I guess that's sand. Is that what's going on here? So it may be a generated thing, or it may be, from Pixabay or something. I'm gonna guess it's an actual photograph. If you generated this looks great. So same deal as the other ones. This looks nice and clean, pretty easy to read. But a really textured background like that is gonna be slightly distracting, especially around the edges. I know it's a business card, so it shouldn't matter too much, but I would think that just like a plain white background with black text with this same stuff here would be probably better. And this actually has a misspelling, right? So specialists is spelled incorrectly. I didn't notice that on any of the other ones. Let me check that alternate banner real quick. Okay, so there is no specialists on that. And then the logo, bus ad. Let's open that real quick. Nope, that one looks fine. So yeah, a big thing is spelling things correctly. I think we talked about it before I can't remember which project it was, but it's like you really have to like go into the fine print of Photoshop to actually get it to spell check for you and stuff. But really important thing to do, right, is to spell check your stuff. It looks kind of funky if you can't spell something properly. I'm sure it was just a typo there, but something that you should certainly look at pretty thoroughly before you send it off to your printer, and potentially spend a lot more money than you need to. You have to buy things twice. Okay, so this is the back of the business card, and I think that this looks great, and it's a nice simple design, just pure text. It gives you every bit of information that you need there. And then I would assume that this is your primary contact info that you want people to call rather than this stuff. But if they want to do this stuff, that's fine too. I'm not sure if I would personally go this route. I think that your website should probably go second, and then all of the stuff underneath it. So the idea would be that let's take a look at the front side of your business card real quick, because maybe it has your website listed. No. Okay. So the front side is just an attention getter, and then the back side actually has the information on there. So you'd probably want people to go to your website first to see, what kind of work you do before they contact you and stuff. So I would think Nate Jones and then natejonesmedia.com would be first. And then your preferred way to get in contact. So that could be your phone number after that. But otherwise, just design-wise, it's very nice. It's exactly what you want. Very readable. You're not going to have any issues with bleed area or anything like that. Okie dokie. So that's the same thing with the business card RGB. You probably don't need RGB for your business card because you'll just get it printed, right? But it's good to see if there is any kind of issue between RGB and CMYK. And we actually do see one on the back side of your card. So if you look closely, I'm not sure if you can see it on my screen, but there's a bit of a pink tint on the CMYK version. And then if I look at the business card RGB, that's just a pure white. So I don't know if you can see the border here, but there's no border for the RGB. And then if I switch over to CMYK, we see that kind of tan pink border. And that's something that you would have to clean up after you switch from RGB to CMYK, or vice versa. If you wanted this color on your RGB version, then you would need to replicate that. If you want it to be just white, and I would assume that you do, you probably need to kind of tweak the CMYK version. Okay, so you did a favicon. I think that's how you pronounce it. which is great. It's just that super tiny little icon that pops up on the top of a browser. And yeah, it's your logo there. It's, favicon is generally kind of hard to tell what it is exactly anyway. But if I would assume that this is within the context of your website, and I'm seeing your logo all over the place and I see it up in there too, I would assume that I'd be able to be like, oh yes, that's certainly the same logo. So no issues there. It's definitely a weird thing to create, but it's something that almost every website has. Okay, so here's just the logo, and it looks pretty nice. Again, if we look really close at the edges, we can see that kind of aliasing, and maybe you could clean that up a little bit if you want, but if you want it to look like torn paper or something, it looks fine. We won't hold that against you too hard. The background, again, just has that kind of busyness that it doesn't need to have. If this was just on a plain white background, I'd be just as I'd be happier with it, honestly. We would just look at your logo. There's nothing to distract us at all. Okie dokie. And CMYK, I'm going to assume that that's the same, but we can look to see if there's any color difference. There is. Okay, so if we look at RGB real quick. So we have this pure gray on our wolf here. And it looks nice in RGB, but if I switch to CMYK, I'll see that that gray got a little warmer, right? It looks kind of like you put a warming filter on this whole thing. And I can't really tell that with the sand here, but it's something that you have to look out for and have to correct for, especially if what you're doing requires both RGB and CMYK. In this case, a logo, yeah, I think that you should have both of those things ready to go in RGB and CMYK without any kinds of issues. If you're talking about the bus ad or the business card, it's probably just CMYK. So if you're happy with the CMYK version, no worries. But if you're going to switch between those two things, you definitely want to make sure your colors match. Okay, Twitter banner. Let's take a look at that. This one, again, we probably don't care about the CMYK, but we'll look at it anyway. See if it has that same kind of tint on the logo. See, the logo looks fine this time, so I'm not really sure what happened in the translation there. But if you corrected it, you did a great job correcting it. So logo looks good here. Is this a Twitter banner? Okay. So it's not exactly centered with the text, which would kind of drive me crazy since your logo is perfectly aligned vertically. You would assume that the spacing looks fine, right? Horizontally, but vertically you have all of this extra space here and then almost no space at the bottom. And you can always, if you want to argue about that and send me an email about how Twitter requires some extra space at the top, feel free. But, if we're just looking at this as its own thing, I would certainly want this text moved up a little bit. And, again, the busy background is really going to distract us from what we care about, which is, the title, what you are, and your logo. And I think your logo is so good, I would like for people to look at that rather than your background. Okay, let's take a look at this Twitter logo. Okay, and I think that this is great too. You have your logo very prominent throughout all of your graphics and stuff, and this one's just a little bit more subdued, and the title is very clear. I don't know if the established 2019 is that important, but having that logo clear over a semi-transparent background, I think that that's great. You'd have no issue since this is, again, a digital format with any kind of bleed area or anything like that. So couple of things with this one is, the CMYK RGB change and fixing up the colors with that sort of thing. And then a few text alignment some background, very busy backgrounds, and the other stuff that I mentioned, the busy backgrounds, and then busy backgrounds, text alignment, and then maybe some like ordering of text. Also the misspelling of the words. Definitely some stuff that we would want to clean up. So if you do plan on using this for your business, I just kind of go back through and rework a couple of things. I'd really consider, cleaning up the backgrounds too, and just making them, much less stark. Even if you wanted to keep like the sand background, maybe just turn down the opacity or use a blending mode or something. I don't think the blending modes would help you much. Just opacity it down, and that might help too. Okie dokie. So there's our first one. A ton of graphics. Thank you, Nate. So next up is Brandy's project. So we'll just open this thing up, take a look at what she's got, and much fewer things. And we have, it looks like a README document. Oh, no, it's the actual thing I'll put together. Okay, so we're doing Love Just in Time. So this is a book cover. And I'm going to read this slowly, so maybe I'll skip forward. Okay, so I just read the back of the book. And, Love Just in Time, the time is certainly meant to be spelled that way. But there is at least one spelling error with fantasized is spelled incorrectly, which is something that we certainly would not want on the back of our book. And then, there's a couple of things. I think that there's like, he was living the life as one most eligible bachelor, which maybe I'm just reading that wrong, but it might be a little clunky. Otherwise it's fine, but that one typo means a big deal on the back of a book like that, right? Especially if you're gonna if you're looking at that to find out whether or not you're gonna read the whole book. So that's certainly something that I would want to change if I was you. So what you have going on here in the actual back in terms of design, right, is you have these really dark spots and then really light spots with the highlights on the hand and then like the shadows around the hand and stuff. So what you have going on is like you used a glow around it so that you can actually read it. And I'm not sure that that's the best way to go. It makes this really kind of hard to understand what's going on here with all the text and so much glow. So what I would think is maybe you just opacity down the overall back so it gets like gray and dark, and then you just have white text that you can really read, or you go the inverse and you have like really gray background and then dark text. So everything gets either lighter or darker depending on how you do it. I would expect that you opacity this down with black underneath it so then it's nice and dark, and then white text, but that's just my guess. It's kind of your call in terms of design work and stuff, but I think that would help a lot. And then just like make this text larger so we can read it better over the actual image. And without that glow, maybe we could really tell what's happening in the image a little bit better. So let's look over here. We see your logo pretty prominently. That's good. The spine looks really nice, and the logo for the actual book looks fine. I would say if you could push all this stuff together a little bit closer, I think that would look a little bit nicer. And where your name goes, that's where your name goes, so that's good. You have a lot of negative space up here, and I would wonder if you could maybe kind of rearrange things a little bit to make this work, where like right now you have your name and then the logo of the book, or the name of the book kind of interfering with the stuff that we care about. So I wonder if you couldn't somehow fit this up into this negative space and maybe move that over here, or vice versa. Likewise, it looks like they're a little bit squished to fit on the page. So if you could just like stretch this out a little bit and crop on the side, I think maybe that would make some sense too. So all of that stuff I would think about, or you could maybe just size it down, since you go to a pure black here around the sides and all that. Maybe you could size it down and give yourself some more negative space to fit in the title. All options for you. I would think that that would be a good choice though, just because this looks really busy and then this looks kind of empty. So let's look at the other pieces. So we have a copy. So yeah, that's your original image. And yeah, it looks like you did have to kind of squish things horizontally. Now, if I look at it on my computer, even if I turn my screen way, way up, I can see that this stuff looks like pure black. So I would think, and even on the side of his arm, I would think that you could take this whole image and scale it down and then fill the top part that would turn out white just with the same black color. You can sample it in Photoshop and, just make a whole other layer that is that color. And then you give yourself a lot more room to put your title and stuff. So it doesn't have to like fill up the entire space so thoroughly, right? Like you can just scale that stuff down and then you have some space at the top. So then you can put this stuff, and that just makes a lot of sense in my mind. And then let's look at your logo. Okay, so it is Love Just in Time as a logo. Yeah, I think that it's fine. I would prefer to see, your text a little bit closer together. I think that there's room for that. So these two typefaces look very similar. This is some kind of Arial type font. And then this is the same thing in italics. And then this is like a serif font. So you have a sans serif and a serif next together. And you get a lot of contrast from that. So hopefully that's what you're going for, is to contrast these two things. I don't know that I and N should be capitalized for a title. Yes, one more thing here is... Okay, so that's the same thing as the PDF. It's just a JPEG this way. Yeah, so I would consider those things. It does look like you have everything formatted properly for a book. Maybe there's a little bit of extra at the very top of your cover versus your back cover. So that might be something to look at as well. But I do think that there's room to correct some things here, just in terms of design work. I don't mind the image. I think that this is a good cover image. I just think that it needs to be a little bit smaller. And then the back, make room for the text, because that's what really matters. Is we need to understand what the book is about before we buy the book. Also, the typo is certainly a thing too. Okay. So there is number 2, and we will take a look at LPH. We'll find out who that is. And there's a README, so hopefully we'll see who this is. Oh, hey, it's Lisa. All right, so let's take a look at what we have in our zip folder. So here's a headshot, and maybe I should keep that README open so I know what I'm looking at. So included in the package is a branded headshot with logo, photo touch-up, and background removal. Okay, so we see the logo added, we see her name. So I guess this would be a good thing to have for, say, she's a guest speaker someplace, right? And then she can just provide this image, and it can be put on a website or for some kind of advertisement. So I think that that's a great thing to have for sure. The logo looks good here. I do see an edge, but it looks like it might just be my Looks like it might just be my Photos viewer on Windows. The hair cutout looks pretty good. It looks really clean. I see a little bit of like an artifact here, but it's not something that if I wasn't looking for it that I would really see. There's a bit of one over here too, but I guess that one's the most noticeable. But yeah, it's pretty clean. Looks good. Okay, and then what do we have next? Banner image for socials and website. So I guess that means social media. Okay. Yeah, so again, we see the logo pretty well. We see where it's located and the, I guess, statement. What is that called? A business statement. What is that? I can't remember what it's called, but it's important. Okay, so looks good here, and it's a digital banner, so we don't have to worry about bleed areas or anything like that. So I don't know if the gray is the best option. Maybe it's fine. So if this was all light, like your headshot, let's take a look at that real quick. Yeah, if it was all light like that, I think that we can read that text just a little bit nicer, a little bit easier than light text on a dark background. Now the orange looks fine, but the red is just a little bit harder to read because it looks a little bit darker there. So here we're like in a nice middle ground. So if you go light or dark, you're going to be able to read that fine. But this is just a little bit darker, so it's a little bit tougher to read. Also, you have a lot of negative space right here, so I would assume something kind of needs to go there. If it was like something lays on top of it, then that would be great. Otherwise, maybe just move this to the middle. Maybe some contact info would be good. Not sure what you might want to put there, but something would be great. Okay, here's the business card front, and it looks... Okay, so there's lots of business cards out there. This one looks very tall, but I know that there are a lot of business cards that won't fit in my wallet properly. So I would assume that that's kind of what this is. So with that in mind, this looks great. I would be a little bit worried about this being in a bleed area and getting cut off. So I'd probably just bring that in a little bit, especially on the right side. You might be within the bleed area on the bottom. But at the same time, there's a lot of negative space here. And I would think that all of this information would fit into a smaller business card format. I'm not sure where you got your template. But we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt that it's like one of these larger format business cards, the kind that you hand to somebody and they have to look at it because they can't fit it into their wallet. But I would prefer to see one that you could fit into your wallet with all of your other business cards. So let's take a look at the back one of it, and it is the same size. So I would assume that, you know, that is the dimensions that you pulled from online or something. Now, again, this is definitely in that bleed area. So you may be fine, but you do run the risk of you print off 500 of these business cards and then you get them back and the ATT.NE all of a sudden is hard for somebody to pick up, and you know, the design doesn't look nearly as good that way. So if you did print this stuff, I would go to maybe like a FedEx office or something and have them print a proof before they run off like 500 of them, and then you are unhappy and have to, you know, order a whole new batch. Okay. Leave behind poster. Okay. Let's see what this says about leave behind poster. Leave behind poster for training 11 by 17 would normally be a TIFF, but I saved it as a JPEG for size. Okay. That makes sense to me. So an 11 by 17, this all should look clean, and it sure does. It looks like you may have done the image trace in Illustrator, which I think is great. I like the text. You don't have any kind of serious negative space issues. Maybe a little bit too much space here, but nothing that's really too harsh. I would again worry about bleed area with the text being so close at the bottom and real close here, but with an 11 by 17, I would think that you'd be safer. If anything, I'd be worried about this text here. But I think that this is a really nice design. I like the color palette a lot, and it looks like you have a pretty consistent color palette, which makes me like the darker text on a black background or a dark gray background a little bit more, since everything's so consistent. Okay, so this looks pretty nice. You have this kind of filter on a bunch of stuff, and I saw this when we talked a while back, and it almost looked like artifacting, but here I can certainly tell that it's very, very intentional with the logo blown up like this. And I'm not sure how often you'll see just that logo blown up. So even on the business card, it's not super big. So I just wonder if you couldn't just see that a little bit big. I like this design a lot, but if you're going to do a front and back, maybe you could just do like the logo large and then all of the contact info on the back. Like, I like this logo too. It's super minimal on the text and stuff though. So I wonder if you couldn't just do like a, use the front with that logo large just to keep people's eyes on that and draw their attention, so if they ever visit the website and stuff, they know that they're in the right place. Okay, so logo on transparency. So a JPEG, I'm sure you know this. I'm sure it's just for size sake. Hold on a sec. Let me see. Logo design in white and black. So if you wanted this actually on transparency so that you can, share it all different places and actually have it on transparency or use it for other graphics work and stuff, a JPEG won't maintain transparency. So you'd need to use a better format for that. So I would say a PSD is the best format if you know that everybody's going to be working in Photoshop specifically. But you could also use TIFF or something if you want to share between programs. Okay, what's next? We have social sharing image. Okay, so I assume the social sharing image is something either for social media or for the website there. I, again, really like the color scheme that you have. And if this is for the internet, I wouldn't worry about bleed area at all. The bisected area looks good. Everything looks like it should be here, except the logo looks a little bit funky here because it's in black and it's just kind of like covering her up here. So I don't know exactly what social sharing image means. So if it ends up going off of the actual website, since you have the website URL here, I would assume that it's not on the website itself, because you don't necessarily need to include that URL because they're already there. So you would want to include the logo, but that logo looks like you could use maybe like the one on transparency, but you probably tried that already, and then the colors are too close, so it started to blend in with the background and stuff. So what I would think is like this URL is really important, and the logo doesn't necessarily need to go there, but you have an opportunity to put it very small in this white area. So you have a little bit of extra space here for some reason. But if we maybe pushed that up or resized the text just a little bit and gave a little bit of room to put this in the bottom right corner of this big white square for your text, I think that would be the place to put it. Otherwise, it looks really nice though. The therapy button. What is the therapy button? Let's see if we have this. Website images for therapy and counseling links. Oh, okay, so on the website, you can click on therapy and counseling because this is the button. Okay, so if it's a button, do we want a... Okay. For a lot of buttons, you want like a hover over and it changes and stuff, but you have this like learn more here. It's clearly like, oh, we can click this and we're going to be safe. So this is the website overall, and I'm just kind of looking at things. That's why I'm a little bit quiet. Okay. So I see much more what's going on here with the banner. So this is for the actual website. Again, a lot of negative space here that could be utilized. This stuff all looks good and clean. This is not centered on your button, it looks like. So I would take all this text and I would center that with the button, the workshops and training and therapy and counseling buttons, and then I'd make sure that this is aligned center here. This one looks much closer, and it might actually be aligned. Here, this is nice. I just kind of move this down just a little bit, and then it looks like something's funky here too in terms of alignment. So we have this amount of space between your text and that triangle, and then this amount of space between text and that triangle. Looks like something's not perfectly aligned there. So I would mess with those align buttons with all of your stuff. If you've been eyeballing this stuff and maybe you slipped some stuff by me in terms of like center alignment, I would certainly open up the align tab and align center. And I think that could really help you out with this stuff. Yeah, the only thing that really throws me if I look at this as an overall thing, besides, center aligned stuff, is this negative space here. I'd really consider what you can do with that, because that's going to be something that appears on every single page, regardless of if you're in the workshops page or the therapy page. So what would be really important for that? I don't know. Maybe this becomes smaller, and then you have the Awareness Institute as text, much larger here. It's kind of up to you. I wouldn't make it too busy, and already this is somewhat busy, I think that it's fine for your social media, but maybe like even this address, how important is that to be on every single page? That could maybe go down here, and you have the URL, which they're already at the website, so it might not be necessary. Yeah, I'd consider that stuff. Okay, so here's another button, and it's just the other side of things. Okay, hold on one sec. Let me look at that website again. Yeah, for whatever reason with your workshops and training button, you have like a... Oh, no, that was just my Explorer window. Okay, so there was a little repeated thing at the top there. No, this looks fine. I think for the most part, you have good aesthetics here, and just looking at the website, which is like the big project. I think really the only things that bother me are the alignment, and then maybe that top banner. I'd really look at the alignment though, because that's something that people are going to see Like if you have this on a big screen, you might not notice this stuff nearly as much, but if you're on like a phone, this stuff is really going to stand out. So consider that too. Your text is maybe too small for a phone, but you might have some workarounds for, like if someone opens it up on a phone, they have a different version. But I would definitely consider that because a lot of people visit websites on their phone, and you need to be able to read stuff. Okay, so before you publish this thing, please go back and align your text all over the place, and then you should be pretty close. I'd look at that banner one more time though. Okie dokie. Let's take a look at the last one. Okay, so I've extracted this archive.zip to take a look at things. So what do we have first? We have business cards 2. Business cards 2. I wonder why it's 2. Okay, so 80s, 90s toy room. Educate, buy, and sell. Just enjoy toys. Okay. Facebook, eBay, and YouTube. So everything's nice and clean. I like the font that's here. It's like kind of a retro font, and the color scheme is very super bold, but makes sense for maybe some toys and stuff. And your toys kind of fit within the color scheme a little bit too. Okay, and then this is what photos for eBay. Okay. So yeah, I think that this is very helpful. You have complementary colors with the background and your text. Your background image really kind of shows us what you sell on eBay. So I think that that's really helpful too. Let's take a look at the next one. Facebook banner matches, nice and clean. We can tell it's the same business. I do see that there's an alignment thing on this one where the spacing isn't the same. So center your text. This one is the same way. So it's just kind of like eyeballed center. And I would assume that's the case with everything. So you definitely want to actually use those align buttons to get your stuff actually aligned instead of eyeball things. Okay, and then this is for YouTube, like a YouTube banner, I guess. And then this is for a t-shirt. Okay, so I think the t-shirt is maybe the most successful. I'd probably try to push your text a little bit closer together, or maybe like make it bigger and closer together, however you want to do it. But that spacing is probably a little bit more than I'd like. And then this looks totally fine. With all of these, besides just the alignment, which you definitely want to take care of. And this one's the business card is probably fine, but I would I'd look at these and maybe opacity down the actual toys a little bit so we can really read the text. So you have this nice complementary color palette going on, but all of this stuff makes things like really visually busy and distracts you from what the actual title is. Like, we know that you will sell this stuff because that's what you do. That is what the business is. And it's nice to see that stuff, but it doesn't have to be quite as prominent. So I would consider just like opacity down all of the toys, so you can really read that text clearly. This, I'd just like, since your text doesn't overlap that busy stuff, I would just kind of leave it, and then I would blow up that text a little bit bigger. Okay, cool. So then there's a second folder. So let's take a look at that. Oh, you have them put up there so we can see what that looks like. Yeah, it looks great. I think that looks really nice on your eBay. and it fits perfectly. And this is for your, it says office supplies. Oh, okay. So this is for your business card. So you can see you're well within the bleed area. Everything's safe there for sure. If you printed this off, nothing would get cut off at all. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then, oh, wow. You have all of your merchandise. And, besides the t-shirt, some other stuff here looks pretty good, right? I do think that this is a nice, clean design, and it looks like the tablet case looks really good. Like it would fit really well there. And I would think like if you could find a T-shirt that was blue that matched that blue color, or if you like sampled the blue color from the T-shirt or something, that would be the ideal way to go. Or you could maybe even potentially just like take your just drop out your blue background, like save it as a transparency, and then you don't have the blue square for the actual t-shirt. But on this other stuff, it looks pretty cool. I think that it worked out pretty well for you. And then what else do we have? That's your YouTube banner. I think that looks totally fine. I think that looks nice. Everything is really consistent, right? So like if we jump to your Facebook, if we jump to your merchandise, if we jump to your eBay page, everything has that same consistency. And I think that that's like the big thing with this project, right? That you want to be able to tell that everything goes together. And we can certainly tell that. And everything's a little bit different, but, matches, which is great. So a simple design, but pretty effective. But boy, oh boy, align this stuff. Look, I can see the alignments off. So that's the running thing between all of the master's students is, for whatever reason, the alignment buttons escaped us. But yeah, I might go back and mess with a little bit of transparency on a few of these things too, so we can read that text a little bit clearer. But on the whole, it's pretty good work. Looks nice. Nice retro design. All right, we are back at it. We have all of the undergrad projects now. So those are the movie posters and deliverables for a particular film, be it real or not real. Probably not real. So I've downloaded all these things. Again, looking at them for the first time for the most part. We have Foreign Invasion, and we also have a README, and I hope that this is for Foreign Invasion. It certainly is. That's great. So I can tell that there's a one-sheet poster, RGB, and CMYK. Then there is a promotional business card and Netflix standards. Okie dokie, let's take a look at them. So if I double-click that, I'm not sure who this is, though, which poses some problems. I think I know based on the email, but that would be a really important thing to include in a README or in the file or somewhere, so that we know who is doing this stuff. And because we have zips within zips, I actually do have to unzip. Not the worst thing in the world, but it is better to just have the files in there. Okay, so let's take a look at Foreign Invasion. We'll just delete the old one, and we'll open this. Hopefully we can get into these zips. So it is a little bit troublesome if there's zips within zips, but we'll make it work. Okay, so this is the final, it says Final Photoshop Project CMYK. So I assume this is your one sheet. Let's see what is listed here. Yeah, so final RGB, final CMYK. All right. Okay, so the image looks pretty good. What is going on? Man, that's wild. Okay, so I'm going to assume that that's not an actual problem, and that's something on my computer. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. So I am re-recording, and it's still doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's just my computer being weird. I'm not opening these things in Photoshop to save some time. I will take a look at it if anything seems weird, and I don't just give you the benefit of the doubt there. Okay, so that... Oh, it's probably because we're within a zip. That's probably why. So it probably can't show it nearly as well. So if I'm looking at my RGB and my CMYK versions of this, I see no difference in terms of color. So that's awesome. That's great. You had no issues, or if you did have issues, you corrected those issues well. I can really read the text well. You have a tagline in there. That's fine to have. It looks like you've brought in some very high resolution images, or some kind of like vector images where you can scale up pretty well without having significant like artifacts or anything like that. It's kind of neat to see some aliens in the darkness there where it doesn't look really terrible. That said, this looks a whole lot more like a book than it does like a one-sheet poster. So we would expect this to have like a credits block. So I think that I mentioned it in a tutorial before, but there's like Video Copilot credits block. I have one actually for my film. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick on Photoshop. So a credits block looks like this, right? So there's a really specific style for that. And this looks a whole lot, since it's only 2 names here, it looks a whole lot like a book, you know, like it was written by 2 people, even though it says starring and directed. So I would think that would be where I would really go to make this look a little bit nicer. This seems a little bit funky too, just with the Who Sent Them being centered and this being off center. I can kind of get behind like the overlap with the text here and stuff, but I would want this much bigger than this, right? Because like what really matters is the name of the movie. That's what you want people to walk away from. Like they can't forget the name of the movie, so they can go home and look that stuff up, or they can go to the theater and buy a ticket and stuff. But otherwise, you know, if we throw out the text here, I would say that this is a really strong design. I love the light effects that you've done, and the layering, it's just like, it's kind of like the composite we did, only, you know, a little bit more complicated. And it looks really good in terms of the compositing work that you have there. This really stands out. These guys are kind of hidden, but if you look at the poster, you can see them and stuff. I think that that's a great design. All right, let's take a look at the promotional card. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really cool. So again, you have something that's, you know, very similar. You have the same text, so we don't have any issues there. You have the same UFO, so there shouldn't be much of a question about, is this the same project? And then your compositing work looks pretty good here. And the alien is much more stark this time, right? Like that's what kind of sells you with this design. So very similar. We couldn't mistake this for anything else, but it's different enough, right? So I think that this is really good design work again. I think that this white edge kind of bothers me a little bit, I guess. It's probably not the worst thing in the world. It looks like you just did a bleed area here, which is fine. This big black border is totally fine. I think it's pretty nice aesthetically even. But I would try to get rid of this white line here. Also, just like the last one, I try to get this text a little bit bigger so we can really read that. And then with a promotional ticket or promotional card in this case, maybe this is okay. Maybe just to like have a little bit of text. See, if you took that credits block and you tried to smash this into something that's a much smaller format image, then all of a sudden you couldn't read that text and stuff. So might not make sense to have a credits block here, but if you really wanted to say like this person stars in it, I'm not sure who that person is, but if you really wanted to emphasize that, then maybe this is perfect in this case. But yeah, I would make this text a little bit bigger, and I think that you're pretty golden after that. Maybe that line too. Take care of those things. Okay. So far, so good. Now we have Netflix horizontal. So this should look a lot like your posters. Hey, it looks a lot like your poster, right? So that's what I would expect. Again, I would probably make this text bigger, just so we can read it easier. And maybe if all these things are layers, you might be able to bring him up and cut him out from the background a little bit more. But it's doing what it's supposed to do. The Netflix stuff should look a whole lot like your poster, just kind of reoriented, which you have. All right, Netflix vertical. Now this one should look a whole lot like your poster, and it does. That's great. What you're doing in terms of taking out the text, you're following those guidelines from the Netflix thing. It's really just supposed to have the title on it, and that's it. And that's what you have. Again, I'd have the title bigger, but we are beating a dead horse at this point. Finally, a title card. Is that the Netflix title card? Yes, it is. Okay, and that is perfect there too. And this time, text is right on. So yeah, you can't really get a whole lot of busy artwork in there for that title card. Yeah, you just have that same kind of color aesthetic, the same the same font, the same title. Everything says it's the same movie, which is exactly what we want. So this one turned out really solid. I think that you have everything that's required of you. You have your one sheet poster and RGB and CMYK. The colors looked great between both of those things. You have the promotional business card. It's a little bit different than the ticket, but we'll call it the same thing. It's the same dimensions, and it looks pretty nice. The only things across the board for most of these things are just text needs to be resized a little bit. And, with the poster, a credits block would have been pretty nice there. The Netflix standards all look great. This is a very successful project. There's a couple of things that could be tweaked just a little bit, but for the most part, it looks good. All right, moving on. We can understand what these things are. Let's take a look at your logo first. Narrative in-house production. Okay, I think that this would be a great opportunity to do something in motion later. I think that anything that has the film and sprockets just kind of screams that. It may be a little bit hard to read with the X like that, you could maybe do that and then transparency one of them or opacity down one of them so we could read the house, because they cross over in the same place. If one crossed over down here or something, then we could probably read between the two, but we have to kind of assume a couple of things since the O and U are covered up in both cases. It looks a whole lot like the Indie Rights logo, though. I'm wasting time here, but let's look at Indie Rights real quick. So yeah, I guess it's not exactly the same, but similar look, similar colors as well. So if you weren't inspired by that, what a coincidence, right? Okay, so let's take a look at your CMYK poster. All right, so you do have credits block at the bottom, and I think that's a good start. You have your own kind of typeface for it, which is cool. Effectual is the name, I guess. Now, what I would say is your credits block is a little bit too on the edge. If we're like looking for, if we're going to print this thing out and there's some kind of bleed area, or like it goes in a frame somewhere or a light box and at a theater, we could really get some of this stuff cut off. So I'd certainly scale that down to fit in your space a little bit better. Your colors are really nice. I like this kind of color palette that you have. Also, yeah, your logo is in that same kind of not good area where things can get cut off and stuff. I don't know that you need premieres here. You could just have October 30th. We understand what that would mean. And this seems kind of weird, you know, because it's not exactly centered. Like if you had premieres October 30th centered underneath, and then you just took your logo and popped it in the bottom right corner, I think that would help. Also, you know, just as an overall design, this is kind of funky. So yeah, there are posters that have like that kind of border around everything. Like a retro poster would have that. Just as an example, again, I'm wasting everyone's time here probably. Tales from the Crypt. I like this poster a lot. Super old retro poster. And it definitely has like a border. Like you see that top border, and then there's bottom there too. And that's almost kind of what you're going for here, but it's really let's just open yours back up. It's got like a lot more space dedicated to just color than the actual image. So if we're looking at these retro things, like that image is like the biggest part of the poster, so I would expect you to like scale this up or something to kind of fit out that space a little bit more. So that's a bit of trouble, right? So it doesn't exactly look like a poster because of that. I do like the image though. I like that it almost looks like you sampled colors from the image for your top and bottom here, and if you didn't, you matched them pretty well. Okay, so let's take a look at what you have next. This is your collector's ticket, and this looks great. I have to turn my computer sideways to see it properly, but that's fine. Your bleed area is really good. Like nothing's gonna get cut off there that's any trouble here. I'm not sure what this logo is here, but it looks great, and the barcode makes a ton of sense to be there. The title being nice and large and prominent is good. The date is really good too. Maybe you could maybe push this up. There's a little bit of negative space here, and put like the location for your premiere date, right? But if it was online or something like that, maybe it wouldn't have one, but maybe it would have a URL instead. Kind of nitpicky stuff for that, but the overall design looks really strong here, and like everything fits really well and would be really easily readable. The issues that we have though are you have a bit of white poking out here, and it almost looks like something is, you know, rotated off the y-axis just a little bit. So that's funky. And then right here with your barcode, that overlap is a little bit funky too. Even if you just took this barcode layer and stretched it to, you know, match up with the blue edge, I think that would be perfect. But you do have a couple of issues, and you know, it looks really great. Otherwise, I would really think about like fixing that up just a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at, we looked at the CMYK poster, right? Yes. And then I guess the just poster is the RGB version. So what is it? CMYK versus the RGB. Okay. I see no issues with your colors switching from RGB to CMYK, so that's great. Netflix title card. So that looks really good. It's just your text with the color scheme that you have, a nice gradient there. I'm not sure that it's perfectly centered, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. Netflix horizontal, that looks pretty good. I might consider turning this white though, just so we can see it a little bit better with the background image. This I don't mind so much, but that text we really want to be able to read. And then vertical should look just like your poster, but look at all this negative space now without that credits block. Yes, you can't have a credits block for the Netflix vertical art, but that really puts you at a severe disadvantage with that design that we were having issues with before. So that would be something that you would have to figure out because it's just really weird. But you have some things that look great and some things that don't look quite as good, right? So your poster looks okay, your Netflix vertical art not so good. Your what is it called? The ticket. Yes, that's all right. So this ticket here looks excellent, minus the couple of issues with rotation and alignment or resizing, but that design is excellent. It's just a matter of like, how do you translate something that works really well as, you know, a horizontal orientation into a vertical one, right? Because like your poster, everything that's vertical minus your ticket has some issues because that original image is not intended to be used that way, right? So that's where we are with it. Some parts are great, other parts needed a little bit of work. Okie dokie. So what's next? Okay, so I had that README incorrect. So that README is actually for this project. The one we looked at was just called Design Project. So I have no idea who we just saw there. I'll have to go through my emails and stuff. Really important that that we label our stuff properly, which most people did. The README was really important. And then naming things the right way is really important too. So I don't have to like figure things out. If you're working for a client, they're not going to want to have a bunch of like untitled things and you have to figure it out on their own, right? Especially if there's like a lot of projects, just like what we're experiencing here. But this one is really well organized, which is great. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this stuff looks like. So Darmody, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I'm very sorry. Okay, so Darmody Productions presents, I know I'm saying that wrong. The Widowed is the title of this one. So if this is the business card, it's a PNG. Okay, it looks fine. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the other stuff looks like since this is kind of a scaled down thing. I can certainly read it, and it is basically everything that I need, I guess. It's kind of intriguing, right? So it depends on how you want to use this business card. So what we were talking about is like a promotional ticket. Like you get this, you show up at the door, and you can get in that way, and you have a little keepsake at the end of the day. As a business card, you can hand this to somebody, and then they're going to have to do some research, right? They're going to have to figure out who this is or what this is. They're going to have to like dig to find you because there's no URL here. There's no email address or something or social media links or anything like that. But just in terms of a design, it's pretty nice. You reflect the outer border here. You have like a nice like beveled edge on the black. It looks like you've generated something back here. Maybe it's an original image and kind of manipulated though, but nice and readable, and your title looks pretty good there. So let's take a look at the logo. So there's the logo, and it's the same thing. There, it looks like there's like a stroke around it a little bit. Looks kind of like a light gray with this black background. Looks totally fine. So let's take a look at Netflix. Okay, so that looks lovely, except we wanted 3 Netflix items. So there's a horizontal, there's a vertical, and then there's a little tiny like thumbnail text thing that you would do. I think that you'd be able to do this very well, but it is missing a few items. So coming to Netflix July 27th. So this is the idea here, I guess, is like it's promoting that it would be coming to Netflix. In reality, in the Files tab on Canvas, you'd find these standards for Netflix. So if your movie was already on Netflix, you would have to give Netflix certain graphical elements along with your film, so that it could be accepted into their platform. And part of that is that it can't have any text other than the title itself. So any kind of promotional thing or URLs and stuff, none of that's allowed. So it looks like you maybe just missed the Netflix standards, or missed that document when you were looking at stuff. But that's what we wanted with the Netflix art. Let's take a look at your poster, though. There it goes. Okay. So you have like an original image, and it looks like you did some clever stuff to make sure that like your upscale doesn't look like a big mess, right? So it's an interesting design. I'm not sure what's going on exactly. So like this person, it looks close up and stuff, but it all looks like a regular kind of composite. So it looks like it should be a real image. So she looks like she's like floating somewhere, right? Because we're above the trees in the background and stuff. So maybe there would be some like kind of clever lighting stuff that you could do to make sure that she looks like she's separated from the background or something like that. The title again looks good, nice and readable. We would probably expect to have some kind of like credits block here, and I'm going to assume a lot of people aren't watching this entire thing since we're going pretty long here. But what a credits block looks like, I think that I brought it up before in one of the tutorials, but that's what a credits block looks like. That's the one for my film. And I mean, it's just a standard template that you download and pop in whatever names you want. Video Copilot has one and stuff. But you can also just kind of create it yourself. I've seen it on a couple of posters so far, so it's not, completely unheard of, but I think that would look pretty good on here. And then we have the poster 2. All right, so we can tell the difference between CMYK and RGB big time here, right? So one of them is RGB and the other one is CMYK, and I'm not sure which one's which, but we can definitely see a color shift, and it is significant. So you have these like really bold teals here that are just like kind of gray here. So some colors can't be replicated. It depends on which way you're going, right? If you started in CMYK and you went RGB or vice versa, some colors can't be replicated from one color space to the other. So you'd need to fix that up. It's as simple as maybe adding, in this case, maybe a desaturation layer to get that as close as possible. But there's definitely a disconnect between these two things. Okay. So design looks pretty good on these. The logo looks great. The business card looks fine, very intriguing. Maybe could use some more information on it and stuff. The Netflix art looks like there was some kind of issue with knowing exactly what Netflix art we were asking of you. And then the poster is mostly good. The CMYK RGB issue is a thing, and then maybe with like the design, she kind of looks like she's floating there. That's probably much more nitpicky than a lot of people's critiques, but certainly not something that I would grade you down for. Right, that's a subjective area. The things that we care about is the RGB CMYK color change and the Netflix issues there. And in this case, because of the Netflix stuff, if you get your grade and you're like, I want to correct this, I can totally understand having like the format of this class and stuff, having a bit of an issue understanding the Netflix thing. So if you want to, I would be okay with like a resubmission for just the Netflix stuff. Okie dokie. Let us move on. And we have Ashlyn Prince's project. So we have a collector's ticket, we have a logo, we have a movie poster, and we have a movie poster. So we are missing all of the Netflix art. So that is something that we would want for sure. But hey, look at that. As a collector's ticket, this looks really nice. Very, very clean. The logo is amazing. The background is really nice. And it has the information that Prince Theaters. That's nice. It has the information that we'd want for an actual ticket and stuff. And it looks like you have some kind of format here where you could change out the text quickly. Maybe you could print these things off and it would pop out 25, 26, 27. Like you have that automated somehow. I'm not sure how you would do that easily in Photoshop, but maybe there's some additional plugin or an additional program associated with something like this. Looks great. We won't worry about any of that automated stuff. The background pattern looks really nice. This stuff is a little bit funky. We can see a little bit of that pattern at the bottom, but that's definitely within your bleed area, and it's not a huge distraction at all. The color looks great too, just the whole color palette that you have there. So if I look at just your logo, it's a little bit hard to read. No sweat though, because I know it's on transparency, and we can as soon as I laid that on top of a color, I'd be able to read it really well. We just see that this text is white, and right now it's on a white background, but it's not intended to. So you have this as a .png, which is excellent. We know it's a transparency. We can throw it on anything, and it's going to look just fine. All right, let's take a look at this poster. Hey, it is illustrated. It looks pretty great. I'd be really happy with this. It looks like there's no issues with, again, my computer is just being weird when I zoom in too much. It's changing your colors and stuff. I know that that's not there. It's got almost everything that I'd want. I probably still want a credits block once again, because I'm sure not everyone's watching everyone else's critique. A credits block looks like this here. If I had something like this in here, I think that would sell this more as a movie poster. That said, it's really like designed like a movie poster. The logo is nice and prominent and very visible. You have a clean overall image. I can really see what's going on here. Your work with light looks really nice here. I would assume that this is an animated film based on the poster, but so long as you're thinking it's an animated film, I think everything here looks really nice. Let's look at it in RGB, and we'll look at it side by side and see if you had any changes. Okay, so RGB, and we'll jump into CMYK. If there is any kind of color shift, it looks like you corrected it. So let's put them next to each other. Yeah, there is just a little bit of something in that green there and the pink, and then the yellow too. But it looks like everything is being adjusted, right? So I would be willing to bet, just looking at this, that the colors were more different than what we see here, and you've kind of fixed them through filters and stuff. And I would say that this is a really solid job at correcting those colors. It's not perfect, right? Like this is a little bit more yellow, and this is a little bit more gold, and the greens are just a little bit different, and this pink is a little bit more saturated and stuff. But it's really close. Like I wouldn't have any. I wouldn't think like, oops, they messed up with their print here, right? And if I wasn't looking at them side by side, I would think it's the same exact thing. So I would say that that's a successful adjustment that you did. And like all of this stuff, all of the design work looks great for each of these items, except it is missing 3 items, all Netflix art items. And since I've been seeing a couple of issues with that, if you would like to resubmit your Netflix art, make sure that you look on Canvas files at the Netflix art standards. There are 3 separate things. It's like a title or a logo. It's vertical art, it's horizontal art, and then there's something that's like almost just your title logo, kind of scaled down and simplified. So if you want to resubmit those things, totally happy to adjust your grade if you're not happy with your grade. Okie dokie. There are 2 more left that I actually have and got on time. So this one is Dominic's, and he's got a README, which is great. So what do we have here? We have a collector's ticket. We have a poster in CMYK and RGB. We have a logo. We have Netflix horizontal. We have Netflix title card, and we have Netflix vertical. All of those things are what we need, so that's perfect. Well, let's go in order here. Here's the collector's ticket. Get back up. So it's just the title. It's just the logo. And man, that's another one of those like, what is this that this guy just handed me? So if it's like a collector's ticket, if it had like a date and a time and stuff, I think that would, and like a location, I think that would really sell it as a ticket. But that said, design work, it looks really nice. And if you did just hand this to somebody, maybe that would encourage them to like look it up and stuff. If you have good like search engine optimization, people can find it based just on your title and stuff. Let's take a look at your poster now. Poster looks really good. I love this. I think that the design is excellent. Looks like I'm not even sure what that is, like scratch marks and then like wood, like the skateboard, what is that called? I sound very old right now. The main part of the skateboard, the top part of the skateboard, it looks like that. Okay, so it illustrates exactly what this is about. We can tell who's in it. We can tell that it looks like a movie even without a credits block. I would still include a credits block. I've been saying that to everybody. So if this seems really redundant, sorry, but hey, a credits block looks like this. So if you put that on the bottom there, I think that would help sell it as a movie, rather than a stage play, which you can see like one sheet posters for as well. Let's take a look at that in RGB now. Let's put them next to each other real quick. All right, I see 0 issues between the RGB and CMYK. So if you had any and you adjusted for it, that is excellent. If you didn't have any, lucky you. All right, let's take a look at your logo. I've seen it before, but hey, it looks really good. I think that's a really good, like, attention-getting logo, like that kind of caution sign. Like, people are trained to look at those things. So if you see it on the wall or something, that it'll grab your attention initially, and then you can get them with the title and stuff. So I think that's a really interesting and clever design that you have here. So we have your Netflix horizontal, which is perfect. It's just the text of the title, and it absolutely tells us what your poster looks like, or what your film is. Same deal with your title card, still the same text, and then you have those little scratches in there that remind us your aesthetic too. Finally, we have your Netflix vertical, which should look exactly like your poster, minus any text other than your title. That's what you have. It's exactly what it should be. This is a really good project, Dominic. I think that your design is very strong. It works both as a horizontal and a vertical. There's no question between all of the items that you've submitted that this is the same exact project. I really like the idea of the design, like grabbing your attention like a caution sign or symbol. The aesthetics are there. Everything looks good. Hopefully it's a real movie, because this looks great. And if not, sell your design to a skateboarding movie, because it's pretty good. Okay, let's take a look at our last one. It's Carla's, and we don't have a README for this, but things are very well labeled, so I should have no issue telling what's going on here. So we're starting with display art. So that is your Netflix title card, I believe. So it's called Sultry. It's just the title. It's small. That's what it should be. Okay, so it's Netflix display art. Got it. And then this is your Netflix horizontal, and that looks great. We'll reserve a little bit of judgment when we see the other art, make sure that it's very similar. Hey, it is very similar, and I assume this is going to be really close to what your poster is here. Very easily readable, a simple and effective design. There's no question between these three things that it's all the same project. Here's your logo. And again, it's a very simple logo, but very readable, and it's all it's very unique too. It's not just like a typeface that you popped out there, right? So it kind of communicates the style, I guess, the genre. So here's your poster, right? Poster in CMYK. Let's open RGB right next to it, make sure our colors aren't changing too much. So no issues with the RGB and CMYK thing. You can see a little bit of something in the reds here, but it is very, very minimal. So what I like about it is I like the fold marks. I like that kind of retro style and stuff. And it's even got like some highlights in here that kind of mess with everything else. It's a good way to disguise the fact that your still image isn't exceptionally large. So if you blow that thing up, you're going to see some artifacts and stuff, but this will cover for a lot of that. So that's a clever way to kind of hide something that you don't want people to see. But this looks pretty funky, right? So I guess there's an apostrophe here, and that's what's up with the extra space. She-s looking, it looks like, instead of she's looking. And the font, it just doesn't match this as well. This looks really nice. This looks kind of funky. And I just consider, like just write, like this probably didn't take you forever to do, and then just like create this your taglines the same way as your main title. And just to do the thing that I've done with almost everybody else, the vast majority of people don't include a credits block, but a credits block down there would look really good. It would help fill out this negative space a little bit. And it almost looks like, I can't tell, let me just pop in here a little bit closer. Yeah, it almost looks like your text is above the weird poster crumble layer. So if I look at your main title and get a little bit closer in there, you can see all those crumbles like really play into your text as like an overlay or however you're doing it. But I can't see that same sort of distortion in the text here. And it could just be because it's such a stark white. But I'd love to see that, because this really stands out as being much different than this. And if you did the same, if you kind of did like a credits block down here and used maybe the same credits block text, or you incorporated this kind of text into this, I think that would be pretty darn good. Let's take a look at your promo card. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So yeah, this is the information that you would need. And this maybe isn't super readable, but maybe it definitely feels like a intriguing thing. Like what is this? I might move your title up just a little bit. You have a little bit more negative space, even with the bleed area. I wouldn't really worry about the bleed area for this text though. It's fine. And maybe I'd move this down a little bit too. I'm not sure what kind of bleed area you were looking at. I think it's like a 0.5 inch generally. So if you put that all around, then maybe, without bleed. Let's look at the one without bleed. Okay. So yeah, I just move this text down a little bit and kind of fill out that negative space a little bit more, and then everything should be better. But it's certainly all in the same kind of universe, right? So your main title is the same across the board. Looks very nice on black, by the way. Your text all kind of matches, even though I'm not super in love with this text. I like it a lot better in your promo card though. And then your aesthetics, generally the main cover and stuff, all match and look good. And you found a good way to hide those artifacts. So I applaud you in that regard, since that's something that a lot of people have issues with. Okay, so that is it for the projects that I actually got. If you turned something in and I did not review it, make sure that you email me and we'll work that stuff out. But in my emails, I just went through everybody's and downloaded everything. So maybe something got lost along the way. I should have responded to you if you did email me your project, just saying, hey, I got it, right? And if you didn't get that email, maybe it didn't get to me, right? But if you did get that email and I didn't review it in this video, that means I messed up. So please reach out to me and stuff. And for a couple of people that had issues with the Netflix stuff, I'd be happy to update your grade when you do turn in that Netflix stuff. And I can do that pretty much immediately. So this week, easy stuff, right? All you had to do was watch this video, or even just watch the part that's your part of the video. Next week we will be back with more After Effects stuff. So hopefully you're prepared for that. And if you've fallen behind at all over the course of the course, you can certainly catch up now. All right, I will see you all next week with another After Effects tutorial.